What up, dudes? It's Gaz, and welcome back to another Warframe video. Today, we're talking about the Verdilac, which is honestly probably the new best whip in the game. I'd say that's pretty safe to say that. And it's also probably the best new Archon meta weapon that was added with the new war update. So, before we get into it, make sure you are subbed to the channel, and make sure you check out the live stream channel as well, so when we go live and stream some Warframe. Alright, so the Verdilac, we're going to go over quite a bit of the unique functionality of this thing. Also, it is pretty much a new utility melee as far as I'm concerned, because of some of the unique properties this thing holds. So, just briefly go over the base stats. It's actually pretty stacked up here. We've got, not great attack speed. We'll talk about attack speed in a little bit here, but 1 attack speed, 45% blocking angle, so very small blocking angle, standard combo duration of 5 seconds, 3 meter range, and we've got 30% crit chance, 2.5 multiplier, so pretty good stats in that regard. Could be a little bit higher. You will not be getting red crits with this thing with Blood Rush only, unfortunately. 2.5 multiplier is pretty nice. It could be 3, of course, but we're looking pretty good there. 21% status chance, so very, very good hybrid stats with those 3 right there. We've got a mostly slash-weighted whip, with puncture being the second and impact being far away from that. So if you get a minus puncture rivet on this thing, it will be a slash monster, honestly. And the heavy attack is just a whip heavy attack. Remember, whip heavy attacks do have force slash procs, so you can get some force slash procs if you do a heavy attack build for this thing. So, the unique part about the Verdilac, besides actually having good stats for some reason, is that you can actually, the neutral block combo, I believe it is, it will fire off these energy waves. And as you can see, it is very slow. This is an unmodded build right now. And there's some unique properties to these waves. Not only are they projectiles, they benefit from Blood Rush and Weeping Wounds. They do not build combos, so if you hit an enemy with this, it will not build combo off of them. And additionally, they deal toxin damage. And that toxin damage from these energy waves can combine with your other mods and make things like corrosive. With just 1 electric mod, you can get corrosive on these energy waves. There's a toxin right there, toxin proc. So, yeah. And also, since they're not building combo, you need to actually hit the enemies normally if you're going to be building for Blood Rush and Weeping Wounds to keep your combo going. So, pretty powerful there. You can actually proc some slash from these waves too. They do have a headshot multiplier, and they're pretty nice. There's definitely some weird stuff with them where you'll see low damage numbers. One really annoying thing with whips actually is if you look at the base stats this thing has, it's 50% follow through, and or 0.5 follow through. What that means is, let's say you're swinging the weapon around like normal. I have 4 enemies in this row. If I swing this weapon, the first enemy, it's a perfect example right there. That guy took 20 damage. This guy took 10 damage. 50% follow through or 0.5 follow through means every enemy hit, it gets lower and lower as you go hitting enemies. So let's just try to hit all 4 of them right here. 20 on the first guy, the last guy took 4 damage. So this guy takes full, that guy takes 50%, that guy takes 50% of that, and this guy takes 50% of that. So it gets weak and really weak the more enemies you're hitting in one slash, and that's how it is, unfortunately. So you can see how slow these projectiles are. We're actually going to jam a bunch of attack speed. This is a weapon I'd say there is no amount of attack speed that has too much attack speed, because you need to be firing off those waves really fast. We're going to show a basic, Weeping Wounds Blood Rush build here. And there is also something you should keep in mind. There is a mod that is for whips, which is going to be called Nira's Contempt. This mod is currently bugged, and it is, instead of just increasing slam damage, it increases all damage. So this technically is pretty good if you get the full stat bonus on your build, because it goes up to 300%. That's 300% increased damage on everything. So if you want to use a bug mod, be my guest. But we're just going to stick with Condition Overload right now for the standard Blood Rush Weeping Wounds build. And this is with no elemental, so we'll be proccing lots of slash, and it's pretty nice. Now, you might see this build up here called Anti-Nully. Well, here is the main reason I like this weapon a lot, and I am using the bug mod on this build just to mess with it until they fix it. So, this thing, those energy waves, those go through nullifier bubbles. It is a new utility weapon, in my opinion, that if you are bringing let's say you bring like an Archoplasmor for your mission or something like that. And Archoplasmor is usually not great against nullifier bubbles. Well, you could bring this as your utility weapon and be from outside the bubble, just chilling. You got your Gloom active, not a care in the world, and you will one-shot the nullifier if you have, because of the base toxin. Think about it. Corpus have shields, and they have health underneath those shields. Toxin bypasses the shields. It makes it very easy to kill them. This is a new anti-Corpus weapon that I will probably be using in the future. And the thing is, this is the same similar build. You have so much room for attack speed if you mod for no elementals and just a bunch of upfront damage. Because that's what this is, basically. It's an upfront damage, no elementals build. Now, the hitbox on these can be a little bit wonky. It might run to like an enemy dead body sometimes, but 52,000 damage, that's enough to one-shot level 185 Nullifier, because Nullifiers really don't have much health. So yeah, this is probably the build I'm gonna use the most, and notice how much attack speed we've got here. We've got attack speed Riven, we've got Prime Fury, and we've got Quickening. And notice how I have Sacrificial Pressure and Sacrificial Steel, and that Bane mod wasn't even working. Those guys are corrupted, not Corpus. We're running the double Sacrificial setup here because it gets our crit chance over 100% with no worrying about combo multipliers. So that means we're always getting access to our 6.2 critical multiplier, and that's getting us really big numbers. We can, of course, take Nero's Contempt off because it's bugged. But, yeah, this is a pretty nice setup for anti-nully. But let's show the standard build. Actually, you know what? Let's just show it on the Steel Path, okay? This build right here, I'll be showing this on the Steel Path. I was using my Riven on the Steel Path, but it's actually not a very good Riven. I'd say Gladiator Might is probably just better in general. So this is the, oh, that's the wrong one. That's the Anti-Corpus loadout. Here is the slash Steel Path build. An additional thing about this weapon that's really not important at all is that its slam attacks have electric procs on them too. So the projectiles have Toxin, and the slam has electric. So this is pretty standard stuff, but like I said, there is a small problem with that follow-through, because I try to swing all these guys right here. Yeah, maybe one or two of them will die from a slash proc with the full damage, but once the third or the fourth guy starts getting hit by this weapon, that's where our damage is definitely falling off. So it's very fun, and actually it's pretty good against Acolytes, to be honest. I wasn't even like really min-maxing that much. I didn't like buff myself with Roar. I didn't like use Eclipse. I basically just slashed the Acolyte twice and they died. So that was pretty nice. And as you can see, even with this no elementals build, the Toxin is pretty nice for Condition Overload. There's 172,000 slash proc. This is with a minus damage to Grenier Riven, by the way, guys. So yeah, but it is with the Prime Bane of the Grenier, so that kind of offsets it a little bit. And with the Riven Dispo being so low, the negatives don't usually make too big of a difference. But if you can get minus puncture with like attack speed, crit damage, crit chance, whatever, it's really nice. And you might even notice as well, I'm not really running range mods on here on some of the builds. Like the normal build I'm running range mods on, but if you're doing the upfront damage Corpus build and you're just focused on the projectiles, you do not need range. I really like to have range for general gameplay, that's why I'm running it on the standard build, but yeah, since the projectiles don't get influenced by range mods at all, just whatever. If you were to use something like Ensnare or something like that, you could pull the enemies in and make it very easy to hit them, which I recommend the projectiles in that case. They're still a little bit wonky. That sometimes they'll just like do like 1 damage and stuff, so not really sure. I'm hoping for some bug fixes when DE gets back from the office on lots of stuff, like the Nell Prime, this thing. I feel like the Quorum honestly could use some buffs. We'll probably have a video on the Quorum coming out somewhat soon, but I'm just kind of waiting for buffs on that thing, to be honest. I have a Riven for it and everything, so yeah, that's enough of the Steel Path for the Grenier. Let's see if the Acolyte appears anytime soon. I'm guessing he doesn't. But yeah, this is with, you know, just Epitaph, CO procer. They got a good amount of Viral procs on them. We got a good amount of other procs on them, so the CO potential is very high. And also, the standing standing neutral combo for this thing, it does go for headshots quite often, so you'll get some headshot slash procs with this thing's very juicy base stats. Now you might be like, hey, was Maiming Strike good anymore? No, Maiming Strike is trash. We're actually going to make a video on how bad Maiming Strike is very soon. And yeah, it's pretty big bummer how they just completely murdered that playstyle. I feel like Maiming Strike could actually exist in today's current meta, and people wouldn't even like use it like as the only option, because my Kuvazar goes through walls, and DE nerfed melees to not go through walls anymore. I mean, for good reason. It was pretty broken. But yeah, I probably wouldn't even use Maiming Strike that much in the current meta. Let's go over a little bit more of that Anti-Corpus gameplay here. Now, the Anti-Corpus build is not great against Acolytes, but it's very good against Corpus. And this build is not focused on the Verdilac being your main DPS source. It's basically focused on just using a primary like the Archiplasm or the Tsar or whatever, something that's bad against nullifiers, and when you see a nullifier, you whip this thing out and one-shot the nullifier through the bubble, keeping your abilities active and not having to waste your entire magazine to break that bubble down. So yeah, let's go over some weapon grades for this thing. And they're a little bit, I'm still up in the air about the max stats potential on this thing, because at first I was like, oh, so it has base Toxin on the projectiles. That could be really good for some getting like, you know, corrosive Toxin or something like that. Like I said earlier, the elementals do combine on that projectile, so you're not getting like corrosive Toxin, you're just getting corrosive. So where that did influence the grade a little bit, but it still has very good status chance, very good critical chance, and decent crit multiplier. So we're gonna actually go ahead and you know, give it a in the max status potential. Very good status potential. I think you could actually get like, you could potentially get like corrosive on the on the base whip, and that would probably make it where it is... actually, I think it'd be corrosive on the projectiles too. So I think it's pretty good on the max status potential. Might be a little bit more close to B. But as far as Acolyte kill speed, it's a melee. So, of course, that will be like above average. Because we make these weapon grades, you got to take into account all the really terrible weapons in the game that, they are placed on the scale as well. And they're like basically F tier. So this thing is much better than all the terrible weapons in the game. But it's definitely not meta at all. But it's more of a fun weapon if you like interesting weapons like this. And then as far as mob clearing, sadly, because of the follow through, it does go down to B. I wanted to make it an A, but then like I swung at a couple enemies. I'm like, you know what? I ain't killing 5 enemies in one hit with this thing, like basically ever, unless it's a projectile. Cleave it through them. There you go. That nullifier just took a 200,000 toxin damage to the face. He ain't surviving that. They're not going to survive that for a long time. This is the steel path right now. And remember, on the steel path, enemies have multiplied health and shield. We're bypassing the shield multiplier because we're using toxin damage here. So really nice against Corpus. Pretty good against Grenier. Infested, I'd probably just use an AoE weapon on the Infested. And let's talk about the other types of utility melee weapons we have available in the game, because this one is actually a new one in my opinion. I don't think any other melee can really do what we're doing here, where we fire off these projectiles and they pierce nullity bubbles. The other types of utility melee weapons, let's just show like what is available to you in this game. Maybe you don't know about some of this stuff. So we've got shattering impact melee weapons, and those are going to be basically focused on removing the enemy's armor with something like the Sarpa, which fires off a bunch of bullets, and it does impact damage, so you can actually remove enemy armor with shattering impact. We've also got the Verdilac, which is basically a power creep version of the Sarpa, which is also usually used for shattering impact. We've got things like a Glaive, or maybe a Zorus or something like that, where people use this sometimes to condition overload proc for your guns. You put like a bunch of status chants on here. Throughout the Glaive, it gives them like 3-4 procs, and then you fire off your Kuvazar or your whatever weapon that actually works with Galvanized Aptitude, and you get tons of extra damage. And then we've got a couple other ones too, like, of course, there's stat sticks for, like, if you're using, like, a Korra build or, like, a Baruch build or something like that. Zenostar is basically dead nowadays, unfortunately. It's really too bad. And there's also, the most useful stat stick, or the utility weapon, in my opinion, is the Furax and the Furax Wraith. Because of the current AoE meta spam meta in this game, Amalgam Furax Body Count and giving you increased blast radius, basically a second Firestorm mod. This is the best utility weapon in my opinion, and this Furax right here is the reason I'm not going to be using the Verdilac that much. Yeah, I could, for maybe specifically if I'm doing like an Endurance Corpus mission or something like that, I could potentially bring the Verdilac, but making my Kuvazar have bigger AoE explosions is much more important than one-shotting some random nullifier every 3 minutes or something like that. This weapon right here is specifically why I don't really see it becoming any super useful thing. It's going to be really, really niche, but that's fine. It's not exactly meta, like I said, but it is probably the best whip. So let's just compare it to a couple of the other whips real quick before we call it a video. Hopefully you guys are satisfied. I didn't go super in-depth because I do want to wait for some bug fixes on a lot of stuff here. So let's just search whip. Now, a lot of people might compare this to the Atarax, which it's probably still my most used melee weapon. But a big thing about the Atarax being meta for a while is because, it wasn't even meta really, it just was really nice, is that it had really high slash damage, pretty good hybrid stats. You can see the biggest difference here is the slash weighting on the Atarax and the Verdilac, but the Verdilac has almost double the base damage, and also an increased crit multiplier on the Atarax. Maiming Strike carried this thing very hard, to be honest. As a Atarax main back in the day, Maiming Strike carried this thing really hard, and Maiming Strike is dead. So, yeah, it just, there's no real reason to use the Atarax anymore, unless you have a really good Riven or something, because this thing has 0.5 Dispo Rivens, and I think the Atarax is around neutral at this point. So, yeah, hopefully you guys found this video helpful. Of course, you switch out your Bane mod for whatever, and as far as the Riven mods, I do think you should probably go for attack speed. It needs attack speed so badly. I'm actually usually running Arcane Strike on my frame as well. We were running Nearest Hatred as well. Just to make it so I can spam out those projectiles more, because it is so, you saw at the beginning of the video, it is so slow if you do not jam some attack speed in here. I'm basically jamming every attack speed I can throw on here. Alright, that guy died too fast for Arcane Strike to proc, but that's basically the point of it, is it is so slow you need attack speed. You need something to make it so these projectiles can come out faster, and I'd say if they wanted to buff this weapon, I think whips need a follow-through rework, give it 60% follow-through, 70% follow-through, 80%, something like that, because, swinging this weapon and doing 0 damage like the second and third guy feels bad, so, literally seeing half the damage right there, so yeah. Alright guys, hope you guys found this video helpful. I'll talk to you next time. Make sure you're subbed and all that stuff, and take it easy. Peace!